Okay, welcome to the Hank Cisco show. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't touch that dial. I have a special guest today. Well, it isn't how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. Manja. Okay. Go to right, you gotta throw the shoulder around with it. Right? Hey, okay, thank you, and God bless each and every one.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hank Cisco Show. Let's go.
Ciao, Bella, and welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. I'm your host, Barbara Ann Zippi, executive producer of Ciao Bella Living Italian Style. And in Hank Cisco Style, I have a real exciting guest for you today. She's a good friend, but more importantly, she's the director of the Delaware County Bar Association as a marketing director. And she's also the president of the Delaware County Press Club, which serves the suburban Philadelphia community. And I'd like you to welcome Tracy Price. Tracy, welcome to the Hank Cisco Show.
Thank you, Barb. It's a pleasure to be here. Very impressive.
Isn't it great, this association with Norristown High School?
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things actually that we talk about is the fact that what we went to college for doesn't always translate to what our job career turns out to be in the long run of our career span. And you actually started as a young professional in the Norristown area, didn't you?
Yes, I worked corporate finance in Fort Washington, but I did live in the Plymouth meeting area. So it's been a few years since I've been here, but it certainly has. Times have changed.
And
a lot of building and, yeah.
It's a great community.
Absolutely. I'm most impressive with the studio and what that offers the students here at the high school. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, as a president of the press club, one of the things we can talk about is that young market and how to help those students. One of the things here with doing this show in the Norristown High School is it brings the community in to interact with the students. And one of the things that is important to them is where their next major is, what their major is going to be. What did you go to school for, and how did you transition into what you are today?
Sort of a strange path. Right out of high school, I'm a graduate of Pencrest High School in Delaware County.
Okay.
From there, I went to Pierce Junior College. It was a junior college at the time on 15th and Pine, and I majored in fashion merchandising. And that took me into retail, and for some reason, I kind of liked crunching numbers. So I ended up majoring in accounting at Widener. From there, I worked for a large pharmaceutical company, it was Roar at the time. And I worked for NBC under the RCA umbrella. My first job was to audit the David Letterman show at 30 Rock. And from there, I did some corporate finance, got to travel around the world pretty much, and then it was back to Delaware County, and I, with all the company turnover, I got out of the corporate finance and started working for the Bar Association in Delaware County.
Well, what exactly is a bar association? Because a lot of times this is playing in local bars, our show on local cable, so we're not actually dealing with the libations community, are we?
No, bar being the operative word, no. Yes, it's the Bar Association. We have approximately 1,200 members. There are bar associations in Montgomery County, Chester County, Delaware County, Philadelphia County.
Well, or really over across the country.
Exactly, and we offer continuing legal education credits, education for the lawyers that is required on an annual basis. So we offer a lot of classes. There's other member benefits as well, but that being the education being the the collegiality and the relationship with the judges, bench bar relations,
and the community,
and what we offer to the community as lawyers, which a lot of people don't really see all the time. So
a lawyer, besides going to college and then law school, in order to continue their education, their association with a bar association in their local community is important for them to keep an eye on what's happening with the changes.
Exactly. And actually, one of our signature events is the Bench Bar Conference, which is held annually every June, and that offers the attorneys the opportunity to get all of their credits that are required in 1 year, and they can get it in 2.5 days.
And a bench bar means that the judges go as well?
That's correct.
So
yes.
they get to interact in a social setting,
yes.
in a way. Which, well, in today's age of computer technology, where they're doing so many courses online, right?
Yes.
Why didn't the Bench Bar Association turn into an online course or an online meeting like so many things did today?
They're looking at video recording of CLEs, and I know they offer them in real estate. I am a part-time real estate agent as well, and that's not a comfortable. I don't feel comfort with that. To sit there and look at a screen, I need to be there with the dynamics. I got to see the people, what they're saying. That's just how I operate. And this Bench Bar Conference kind of gives them that same opportunity. It builds the collegiality, and it's face-to-face communications.
Which we were just talking about, the fact that networking seems to be a new buzzword. However, it was resurrected from our initial career days when we didn't have the internet and cell phones. We had to actually go and shake somebody's hand and say, hi, I am. And so that face-to-face seems to be making a comeback.
Yeah, I personally, I'm going to shake a hand.
Yes.
And I think a lot gets lost in the translation. I mean, you could eliminate a comma, and your whole statement takes on a whole different concept.
Well, speaking of grammar, one of your other jobs that you handle through the Bar Association is actually being the executive editor of the magazine. You have a Delaware County Bar Association magazine that comes out quarterly.
Yes, it's called the Delco Review, and the intention when it was first developed was to present legal news on the lighter side, but the lighter side really turned into all the good that the lawyers do for the community. So, and we interact, local vendors, and it could be restaurants, it could be other businesses. It's helped form a really nice bond with the community.
So when you've done some interesting stories in your Delaware County Bar Association, you did one recently on things that everybody sees, and that's the historical markers that when you're driving around, you see this is the home or this was founded in. You've come up with some really interesting discoveries.
I actually just took a walk up to the courthouse and found 3 of them. There was one there from 1974, from when Ronald Reagan stood on the steps of the courthouse and did his presentation. There's also this was the most recent one. There's another one coming out, but this was the fall-winter version. But it's all about historical markers, and I know they're everywhere. They're probably all over Montgomery County. One, for example, is the Leaper Railway, the Williamson Free Trade School.
Well, the one I like is the Slinky.
Well,
how
yes.
many of us remember the Slinky? And I know a lot of listeners to the Hank Cisco show do.
That was a really interesting story to write about because, and I'll just, if you don't mind, I'm just going to reference the article. But it was in 1943, and there was an engineer named Richard James. He invented the Slinky while he was working at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in 1943, and he was trying to create springs that could hold items tight aboard moving ships. But he dropped it on the floor, and he liked the movement of it. And hence came the Slinky. And the first run of the toy impressively sold out within an hour and a half at Gimbel's department store in Philadelphia, if you remember Gimbel's.
And what year, and that was, when was it discovered?
In the early 40s.
So that couldn't have been in the 50s, would have to be, and that was before, other than traditional advertising, there was no way to get the word out about it.
Yes, and more than 360 million Slinkies have been sold since they hit the market in 1945.
That's amazing.
But what's pretty interesting about this is that this gentleman, this engineer, he ended up leaving his wife and 6 kids for a religious cult in Bolivia. So his wife, Betty, he left in 1960. She turned it into the multi-million-dollar company that it was. And this actually, you may have seen it, it's right Clifton Heights.
Okay.
And it says, invented in 1943 by Richard James and named by his wife Betty, the Slinky was manufactured here at James Industries until 1965, and that was in Clifton Heights. In 1960, Richard left his family and gave control of the nearly bankrupt company to Betty. Betty turned the company into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with worldwide distributions. And in 2001, she was inducted into the Toy Industry Hall of Fame. And the Slinky was one of the most popular toys of the 20th century.
It's amazing to see that something so modern could have a historical marker, which it really is an achievement.
And let it be noted, too, it was Delco historian Robin Young. She advocated for the Slinky marker, and that was the 20th one that she has dedicated in Pennsylvania, all commemorating achievements by women.
Well, our viewers are going to have to look in their towns to see where they could see a historical marker crop up and then read it and see their connection to it.
Even if you Google the historical marker program,
right,
it'll give you the longitude and latitude of where every marker is by county.
All across the country.
All across the country.
So thank you for sharing that information with us.
It's my pleasure.
Well, you have come up with some really great programs and speakers that you've done at the Bar Association. And I'd like to talk about one of them, or a couple of them actually, that you brought with you today.
Well, we could start with one I've done in the past, or since we were on the subject of bench bar, maybe we want to talk about this.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm very excited to say, very pleased that we've secured this speaker to come to the bench bar conference. And his name is Charles Brandt. And he is the author of...
Why don't you hold that book up to the camera for them? I Heard You Paint Houses, Frank the Irishman, Sheehan, and Closing the Case on Jimmy Hoffa. What a soon-to-be a movie on Netflix by Martin Scorsese.
Well, it has hit the... Have you seen it on Netflix?
Not yet.
Okay, it's a 3.5-hour movie.
Okay.
It was very good. It was based on this book, I Heard You Paint Houses. Do you know what I Heard You Paint Houses means?
No.
It was a mob term for I kill people.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Robert De Niro got a hold of this book and read it and took it to Scorsese and said, we've got to make a movie about this. Hence, they did. And it was about Charles Brandt, the author, was also the lawyer for Frank the Irishman Sheeran, who was from Upper Darby. Wow. Frank the Irishman was. Yeah, and...
how did you find out about find the guy? How did you find this guy to say, yes, he will be a speaker at your Bench Bar Association?
Facebook.
Really?
I found everybody so far this year. Facebook. Facebook can be your friend if used properly. Yes.
Well, if social media, you're right, if used properly, is. But now, how do you go from being somebody, seeing somebody's news feed on their Facebook page to actually communicating with Charles Brandt?
I don't really have an answer. It just seems to happen, and it just happens
but you
well.
Do DM them? Do you direct? Send them a message through Facebook?
I often friend them.
Okay.
And someone that's trying to. This author was just at the Oscars last weekend.
Right.
He was invited. So he also. Let me tell you a little bit more about him, because they want to put stuff out there that's happening in their life that's going well for them. And he's actually a resident of Idaho now with his wife, but he shares time in Lewis, Delaware. And he at one time was the Attorney General for the state of Delaware. And he also served as the mob went to him and asked him to have Frank the Irishman Sheeran released from jail on medical. So Charles Brandt, the author, rode around with Sheeran for about 5 years and collected all the testimony about the killing of Hoffa.
So
and
now,
all of that evidence has since been turned over to the FBI.
This movie, is it currently now on Netflix?
Yes, it is.
So they can watch this movie that we're talking about, I Heard You Paint Houses, on Netflix.
Well, actually, that's the name of the book. It was the movie is called The Irishman.
Okay, The Irishman is the name of the movie, which is, of course, out there for everybody to see now on Netflix.
And it stars some Academy Award winners. Robert De Niro was Sheeran, Al Pacino was Hoffa, Joe Pesci's in the movie, Anna Paquin, and Academy Award nominee Harvey Keitel. So,
oh no, it's a great, and this is upcoming in June. Now, is your Bar Association's conference, which is usually away someplace, is
Yes.
that open to just Delaware County Bar Association lawyers, or is it open to other lawyers?
Delaware County Bar Association lawyers.
So they have
Each
to-
association has their own bench bar. It might not be at the same time or the same place, but yeah, we'll
Okay.
be at Skytop Lodge in the Pocono Mountains this year.
Well, you're going to have to take pictures and tell us, come back and report about Charles Brandt.
Yeah,
And-
he's also was co-author with Joe Pistone at the Donnie Brasco. He's written quite a few books.
Sounds like he is an amazing man and a researcher too.
Absolutely.
Bringing his projects from words to movies is not an easy task to have happen.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, he was the Chief Deputy Attorney General of the state of Delaware, and he's written a few best-selling true crime novels. He was born and raised in New York, and he's the grandson of Italian immigrants, Rosa and Luigi DeMarco. They had a small family farm in Staten Island, and then his parents were, because of finances, weren't educated either. But he credits a lot of what he learns and what he knows and in his heart from his ancestors. He graduated law school in the University of Delaware. Then he was a high school English teacher in Queens. Then he was a welfare investigator in East Harlem. And then he moved to Delaware and worked as a homicide investigator and later a prosecutor. Great interrogator. He was served, as I told you, the Chief Deputy Attorney General of the state of Delaware, and in private practice.
Amazing how they take your career, the flow of your career through the years, and where you end up. And here, if through that career he ended up at the Oscars. So it's just, your job is so interesting. You came across another interesting story that you did for the Delaware County Bar Association magazine with, I know you're a Pencrest graduate, and it's about a Pencrest graduate.
Pencrest High School graduate, class of '77. His name is Todd Robinson. And he credits he's actually, I don't know if there's been screenings of it privately, The Last Full Measure. It's a true story of a hero, and it was written, produced, and directed by Todd Robinson, this Pencrest 1977 graduate. And it's actually showing at the AMC Granite Run. I have a ticket to see it this weekend, Friday through the following Wednesday.
It may have already passed by the time this show airs, but it's actually starting to be screened.
It has been screened in Brandywine, in the Brandywine area.
Good.
Yeah, so he was, again, a 1977 graduate of Pencrest High School and an honoree in the Pencrest High School Hall of Fame. And he credits what he learned from his drama teacher. He was an actor turned producer. So this movie's been 20 years in the making. And it's a true story of a Vietnam War hero, William H. Pitzenbarger. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And he was a U.S. Air Force pararescueman. And he personally saved more than 60 men. And it was during a rescue mission on April 11th in 1966. And he was offered the chance to escape on the last helicopter out of a combat zone that was heavily under fire. But he stayed behind to save and defend the lives of soldiers of the U.S. Army and paid the ultimate sacrifice.
And this graduate did his story, which is a wonderful thing. So the name of the film for them to listen out for?
The Last Full Measure.
The Last Full Measure.
A true story of a hero. I like what his comment to this Todd Robinson, producer, director, author. The film is about service greater than self. And that's summing it up in an emotional, intense, true story in just a few words. The bottom line is that everyone can make a difference to others. So.
Well, you know, speaking of Pencrest, and a lot of high schools graduate some interesting students. One happens to be, you're the mother of twins, and one happens to be your son, who at a very young age has really blossomed in his restaurant career in the city of Philadelphia.
Yes, he started out at Rotech at Pencrest High School. He came home and said, "Would you mind if I went to trade school?" I said, "I encourage it." And he said, "How about culinary?" I said, "I think it's great." So he got a start there, and then went and applied for a dishwashing job that he thought I was going to be angry over at Azi on State Street in Media. Ended up working under a fabulous chef. Really learned a lot, Chef Kaz. And he moved on from there and then graduated from the restaurant school, was partial scholarship. And he worked in a couple places in University City under Zama, the sushi king, and then he ended up at Stephen Starr's restaurant, The Love. He helped open that. That's at 19th and Sansom with Amy Alexi. He has since, as of August, helped open the chef Jean Georges out of New York. It's the first Michelin star chef to enter Philadelphia. So Will, my son, works under him at the Four Seasons on the 59th floor of the Comcast Technology Center.
So if you're driving anywhere around Philadelphia and look at the skyline, look at the highest point in the Philadelphia skyline, and your son is up there as a culinary chef.
That's correct.
That is amazing.
It's actually the tallest in the city of Philadelphia and the tallest building in the state of Pennsylvania.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fun thing about Will is his age.
He's 22.
22. That is amazing. And his career is just getting started at the top of the sky in Philadelphia.
That's right.
You know, that says a lot for your mother, being your mother's, you know, your mother and you, encouraging the sky's the limit, you know, in anything that you do, and not being afraid to take a dishwasher's job, because look where it could lead you.
That's what I told him. I said, you have to know how to wash dishes and appreciate somebody that does before you're up there dirtying the dishes. So.
And that's true. And you know, the Rotech craze, I know when we were in school, it had some negative connotations to it.
It did.
It really
unfortunately.
did. Yes, when we were in high school.
It still sometimes
somewhat,
does.
But at the same
time. And now they're hurting for people in the trades. They can't
Yes.
get welders. They can't get anybody. Nobody knows how to do anything with their hands.
Yes, so the Rotech Trades are good to look into. Actually, there is someone else that's a graduate of Penncrest with your son who's looking at an exciting career ahead. So you have to share his name with us too.
Yes, Jonah Jackson. He played football with Penncrest, and you know, even earlier than that, started out with the Rose Tree Colts, and he's really turned into a great guy, big guy. But he had a full ride to Rutgers, and he redshirted, and then he was made the move over to play his last year of football at Ohio State, and I believe he's going to be the first kid out of media in the NFL, and so he has been invited to the Combine. I actually wrote it. I know this is supposed to be about, my magazine is legal news on the lighter side, but I'm always happy to share a success story out of Delaware County.
You know, Tracy, that's what I like about you, because you do expand that magazine to show the focus of the community in it. It really represents it, from the young to the seniors. And so your prediction is, his name again?
Jonah Jackson.
That we will see him in one of the NFL football leagues.
I know there's a couple of teams looking for him. Yeah, he went from he's about 6'5", 305 pounds, so he's a lot bigger than when I last saw him. But he's a gentleman, and he's just to hear. I was most impressed when you would see the interviews after the game. I mean, it's one thing to put his picture in this magazine, but to hear him speak and knowing him from when he was little, very, very impressive.
Well, it's exciting to hear that you interact with so many people in your day-to-day job, that you get to reach out to people and pull them together. What do you love about what you do?
It doesn't feel like I go to work every day, I can tell you that. And my mom used to say, when you love your job, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
Now, I've worked a couple days, but
okay.
but I really just, I enjoy. I've never pursued history as much as I have recently. It's very interesting. You know, you experience different things in life, and then different things start to interest you. You sink your efforts into. And
you look at the roots, and you really do learn a lot from the intergenerational exchange, from a senior to a student coming up at school. There, you can learn from both generations.
It's exciting to see people go places.
Well,
it really is.
Your role in the press club, you know, everybody's saying print is dead, and you're printing a bar magazine quarterly. You're reading books that have been turned into movies. What do you think about the state of the communications industry at this time in our lives with all this social media, instant messaging?
I have mixed emotions about it. I know that they say that journalists are disappearing, and it seems like I'm reading more books than I've ever read.
Yes.
Do I pursue who's doing what on Facebook? Yes, it's been a very effective tool, as I said.
However, I bet you went and referenced, when you did, you went and referenced the book, and you bought the book, and you read the book.
I had actually, my father had this book a couple years ago. My father's an avid reader, and that's when I first heard about it. So I guess when I saw it on Facebook, it kind of struck me, hey, wait a minute. And then to find out that Robert De Niro read it and had it turned into you know, a movie with Martin Scorsese was pretty impressive. And I know Instagram is the way to go now to promote your business, and there's a lot of young people I see going into that, and I respect that.
Twitter and all of that.
Yeah, I have a log on. I don't really.
But Facebook isn't dead yet either.
No.
Right.
And my sons, when they were in high school and when it first came out, and they did not want me on the Instagram and FaceTime, and so they said, stick to your Facebook. I said, okay.
Okay. Actually, one of my lady friends said that her son unfriended her because she was commenting publicly on the things that he was doing as a mother, and he would rather be a 40-year-old man without her comments on Facebook.
I, too, was unfriended by my one son.
Okay. So then anybody out there with children that's been unfriended, they don't have to worry.
What it feels like, yeah.
Okay. Everybody knows what it feels like. And as a press club president of an organization that's been around for 40 years, how have you enjoyed meeting the people that are interacted professionally with a club like that?
I feel that the interaction and the opportunity to do what I've done over the past 2 years has brought me to a whole different level in my career, my thinking, my thought process, and how I look at things in a very positive way.
So when people have the opportunity to be part of, take a board position or take the position of the challenge of being a president of a nonprofit group related to their industry, would you encourage people to do that?
I would. You have to learn to stick with the mission. But the one thing that maybe I'm not saying I disappointed my board, but I'm not so restrictive to just call communications as being film or radio in particular. I mean, yes, it's all communication, but to me, communication is in everything.
Yes,
it's through
you're right.
art, it's through music, it's the way people express themselves. And so I'm very broad in my thoughts that way. I can turn anything into communications. For example, and we didn't touch upon him, I also met an interesting author just a short time ago, Bruce Maldy, and he wrote Stealing Wyeth, and it was about when the famous Wyeth paintings were stolen back in the day right out of their home in the Chadds Ford area.
Yes.
Turns out he writes this book. There's a lawyer referenced in there, Carmen Belafonte, who was a lawyer of the Delaware County Bar Association.
Actually, a famous lawyer, a trial lawyer there too.
Absolutely. And he had a client who came to him and said, I have the stolen goods. What do I do with them? Carmen says, you return them. But we ended up having a seminar where we teamed Bruce Maldy, author, and Carmen Belafonte, lawyer, and we called it The Art of Serving Justice. So, and then I had the Media Arts Council allow the artists to come and stage with their works. And it was just a nice blend of community and communication through arts. And the lawyers earned 1 ethics credit because Carmen talked about client-attorney privilege and ethical issues that he dealt with in that case in particular.
But imagine a client coming to you and saying, I have the stolen Wyeth paintings.
Yes.
And give it back. What if they thought they were valuable and they paid for them? And all the other ramifications. I just read a story about one of the modern artworks in Italy that was returned, that the Nazis in World War II had taken. and it was in a private collection, and ended up being returned to the museum in Italy.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, it is amazing that we don't know where life takes us or what you're going to find.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
No. So when you have some advice for words of wisdom in younger generations that we're dealing with here in the studio or listening out there, for, when you don't know what you're going to do, because you've had so many changes, you've even gotten your real estate license, like you're always searching, you're always doing. Do you ever stop learning?
No. It's funny you should ask that question, because I try to have a theme to each of my magazines. This one, as we discussed, was appreciating history, communicating through markers.
Right.
The one prior to that was making first impressions, and it's a replica of the European doors. That's where I got the concept.
The doors of Italy, yes.
But I took all the doors from law offices and media.
Clever.
And we talked about the color of the door and what it says about you. Certain colors represent strength.
Just like a receptionist, there's a person that used to answer the phone was important because they were the first person that heard, you communicated with when you called to an office. Now, with everybody's cell phones, even the greeting when you answer a phone is not standardized anymore.
Absolutely. But the door is your first, you only have one chance to make a first impression, and when you're walking through somebody's door. But it was just interesting that when the door is black, it's a world of order and control, or a blue door suggests those behind it are well-grounded, true to themselves, and enjoy peace and value. It was very interesting.
Well, when you say that you can publish a magazine like the Delaware County Bar Association, have a son who's working as a culinary chef at the restaurant in the top of the city of Philadelphia, the second highest building in the state of Pennsylvania, the tallest building as well in the state of Pennsylvania, and your president, outgoing president soon of the Delaware County Press Club. I can't thank you enough for stopping by and filling us in on all the things that a bar association does. So if you're in the legal community or want to learn how to be a lawyer or want to learn how to interact, look for your local bar association. And certainly Tracy's always a phone call away, or you can find her on Facebook under Tracy Price and try sending her a message. Maybe she'll be a speaker at one of your upcoming events. Till we meet next time.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure, real quick.
Okay, you had asked me what advice I would give, and I just wanted to let you know that my next theme is achieving greatness. And so I would the message I would give to somebody is dream big and communicate effectively, because those that have achieved greatness have been master communicators.
And with those words, I'm Barbara Zippi. Ciao, Bella. Till we meet again.